Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. Flash flooding from Tropical Storm Chantal caused major damage to the town of Hillsborough in July. Orange County says storm-related damage could cost more than $30 million. 2 months later, Gold Park has reopened. It was one of the most damaged public spaces in town. WRAL news reporter Flynn Snyder was there and joins us now to discuss lessons learned in Hillsborough, even as the hurricane season continues. Flynn, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So how was Gold Park? Does it look like a place that suffered major flood damage just a few months ago?
It's interesting. I mean, there were people out walking their dogs today, children swinging on the play sets, and the park just reopened this week. And amid all of the activity ongoing, it's hard to tell that nearly 3 months ago, this park was inundated by floodwaters. In some spots, the restrooms facilities were inundated with about 6 feet of water, according to town officials. So it's hard to tell that any impacts had happened here, but it did take a while to get to this point.
So for all those people walking their dogs, hanging out, all that stuff, how were they? Were they enjoying themselves? Was it a relief to have something like this back open?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the dog walkers for obvious reasons, and the people around here who have young kids say it's been a long time coming, even though it's only been just a couple of months. They say it's felt longer because of their kids have just been itching to get back out here to the park. They've had to totally gut the restrooms here and kind of replace them. They've used materials to rebuild the restrooms that are less susceptible to water damage in future storms. They had to clear several logs and down debris that were blocking paths and the parking lot entrance. And a public art display, too, that was set up here was also just completely washed away in the floodwater. So there was a lot of work that had to be undertaken to get the park back to the spot that it is now today.
So from the officials' perspective, right, you mentioned the changing some of the materials in the bathroom. Were there any other things that they did there at Gold Park to hopefully prepare in case something like this happens in the future?
Well, interestingly, the park is built on a floodplain, and Hillsborough town officials say it's not uncommon to have a park in a flood-prone area because of the amount of open space and available ground that's able to soak up some water. The park itself is situated about 100 yards from the Eno River, which heavily flooded during Tropical Storm Chantal. And so they had to really undergo repavement in some places of the surface underneath the playgrounds in order to make sure that it was ready to go for children and other visitors to come back today.
Let's go and take a quick break. When we come back, we check in on another major point of concern for Hillsborough after the flooding. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with WRAL news reporter Flynn Snyder about the state of recovery from Tropical Storm Chantal in Hillsborough. So, Flynn, one of the biggest concerns from the flooding was this river pump station, which flooded during the storm and spilled 75% of the town's sewage into the Eno River. What is the status on that station currently?
Yeah, that was a huge concern for town officials and residents immediately after Chantal. It caused, there to be a lack of clean drinking water for some days here in town. I checked in with the town's assistant manager today, and he told me that there are still supplementary pumps that have been brought in to help pump water because that pump station itself is not back online yet. Repairs are still ongoing. They're securing a contractor now to get those repairs going, but nearly 3 months later, supplemental pumps are still having to be brought in to make sure this pump station stays working. The pump station is right on the banks of the Eno River. Clearly is very impactful when it's offline. So officials say it's a high priority to get that pump station back up and working again.
Now, to provide some context to this, months before the flooding, FEMA awarded Hillsborough $5.81 million to move the pump station out of a flood hazard area. That money was cut by the Trump administration. So where does funding stand now when you take into account the damage and what I assume is a desire to remove that station from that area that gets flooded so often?
The battle over that funding is still ongoing. We had Attorney General Jeff Jackson here in Hillsborough in the weeks after Chantal, kind of advocating for that funding to be restored. He joined several other attorneys general across the country to get that funding restored. Essentially, with that funding fight comes a race against the clock, essentially, for Hillsborough town officials to get other funding sources. They say they're looking at other grant programs, other funding opportunities to get money to move that pump station because, as they say, and as it clearly was shown in the aftermath of Chantal, there are very major impacts to the town when that pump station is inundated with floodwaters and goes offline.
Now, even though this flooding is months behind us, it is important to remember that we are still in hurricane season. So how would you describe how folks in Hillsborough are doing? Is there optimism? Is there concern for future flooding?
Well, Hillsborough residents that I talked with today, especially at Gold Park, say they are optimistic and happy to see some normalcy come back here in town, including with the parks reopening, other public spaces that were damaged now reopened. But I spoke with one man who was here playing with his daughter earlier, and he was saying that, even though we have spaces like this back open, there are still dumpsters outside of many homes on his street that, people are still cleaning up, recovering, working through insurance, claims to recover essentially from this devastating flooding that the town received in July. Parts of the greenway here in town are still closed because the concrete just buckled under all of the flood water that was there and now has to be repaved. So, you see signs of progress, but still a lot of indications in town that there is a long way to go before things are 100% completely back to normal.
That's WRAL News reporter Flynn Snyder. Flynn, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Luis Fernandez. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.